It started with small things, brief conversations across their adjoining balconies, a wave or a nod when they passed each other in the hallway. Luke had moved into the apartment next to Claire's just a few months ago, and from the beginning there had been an undeniable chemistry between them. Luke was charming, with an easy smile and a relaxed confidence that made him impossible to ignore. His presence was magnetic, and Claire found herself looking forward to their chance encounters more than she cared to admit. One evening, after a particularly stressful day at work, Claire stepped out onto her balcony with a glass of wine, hoping the fresh air would help her unwind. To her surprise, Luke was already there, leaning casually against the railing with a beer in hand. "Long day?" he asked, his voice cutting through the quiet. She nodded, offering a tired smile. "You could say that." He tilted his head, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "Well, lucky for you, I'm a great listener. Want to talk about it?" Claire hesitated, but something about the warmth in his gaze made her let her guard down. "Sure," she said, pulling up a chair. As the weeks passed, their conversations became a regular occurrence. Luke would invite her over for coffee in the mornings or a drink in the evenings, and Claire found herself opening up to him in ways she hadn't with anyone else. It wasn't just his charm that drew her in. It was the way he listened, the way he made her feel seen. Luke had a way of making her laugh even on her worst days, and before long she realized she was looking forward to their time together more than she should. One evening, as they sat on his couch sharing a bottle of wine, Luke leaned back, his arm resting casually along the back of the couch. "You know," he said, his voice low, "you're not like anyone else I've met." Claire laughed softly, brushing off the compliment. "You probably say that to everyone." "I don't," he said, his gaze locking onto hers. "There's something about you, Claire. You're different." Her heart skipped a beat at the intensity in his eyes. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Instead, the silence between them grew heavy, charged with an unspoken tension that neither of them dared to break. The next evening, Claire came home to find Luke on her doorstep, holding a plate of cookies. "I baked too many," he said, flashing that easy smile. "Thought you might like some." She laughed, shaking her head. "You bake?" "Don't tell anyone," he said, leaning closer as if sharing a secret. "I've got a reputation to maintain." As she reached out to take the plate, their hands brushed, and the spark of his touch sent a jolt through her. Their eyes met, and in that moment, the air between them shifted. "Luke," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't think—" Before she could finish, he stepped closer, his hand gently cupping her face. "Tell me you don't feel this," he said softly, his thumb brushing her cheek. Her breath caught, her mind racing as she searched for a reason to pull away. But when his lips met hers, all her doubts melted away. The kiss was slow at first, tentative, as if testing the boundaries they were about to cross. But as his hands slid to her waist, pulling her closer, the kiss deepened, their restraint crumbling under the weight of their desire. Luke's arms wrapped around her, lifting her effortlessly as he carried her inside. Their lips never parted, the heat between them building with every passing second. Claire's hands tangled in his hair, her body pressing against his as he set her down on the couch. "You're incredible," he murmured, his voice husky as he trailed kisses along her jawline. "You're trouble," she whispered back, her breath hitching as his hands explored the curve of her back. Their movements were a blur of passion and urgency, the rest of the world fading away as they lost themselves in each other. As they lay tangled together on the couch, the faint sound of a door opening echoed through the hallway. Claire sat up, her heart pounding as reality crashed down around her. "Was that—" she began, but before she could finish, a voice called out. "Luke? Are you home?" Claire's blood ran cold as a woman's silhouette appeared in the doorway. She was stunning, her voice soft but commanding as she stepped into the apartment. Luke stiffened, his expression unreadable as he sat up. "Emma," he said, his voice strained. "Emma?" Claire repeated, her stomach sinking. The woman's gaze shifted to Claire, her lips curving into a knowing smile. "I see you've been keeping busy." Claire scrambled to gather her clothes, her mind racing. "I didn't know." Emma held up a hand, cutting her off. "Save it," she said, her tone icy. "You're not the first." As Emma turned and walked out, Claire felt a wave of anger and humiliation wash over her. She turned to Luke, her voice trembling. Is she right? Was this just a game to you? Luke reached for her, his eyes pleading. Claire, it's not what it looks like. Let me explain. But as she stood and moved toward the door, she shook her head, her resolve hardening. Don't bother, she said, her voice steady. I'm done. Claire stood in the doorway, her chest heaving with a mix of anger and heartbreak. Luke had been her escape, her oasis in a turbulent life, and now that illusion had shattered. Yet his voice, pleading and raw, stopped her from leaving. Claire, wait, Luke said, stepping closer. His hand reached out to touch hers, but she flinched away. It's not what you think. She turned to face him, her eyes blazing. Not what I think? Luke, you have another woman walking into your apartment, acting like she owns the place. What exactly am I supposed to think? Luke ran a hand through his hair, his face contorted with frustration. Emma and I were together. Once. But it's over. She doesn't accept that, and she keeps showing up unannounced. Claire narrowed her eyes, her voice laced with disbelief. And I'm just supposed to take your word for it? After everything? Yes, he said, his tone firm but desperate. Because what I feel for you, it's real. Before Claire could respond, the sound of Emma's heels clicking against the floor drew their attention. She had returned, leaning casually in the doorway with a glass of water in hand, her demeanor calm and unnervingly confident. You really believe him? Emma said, her lips curving into a smirk. You're not the first woman he's told this sob story to, you know. Emma, enough, Luke snapped, his voice filled with exasperation. Emma ignored him, stepping closer to Claire. I get it. He's charming, isn't he? Makes you feel like you're the only one who matters. But trust me, it's all an act. Claire's stomach churned as she looked between them, the cracks in Luke's story growing wider with each word Emma spoke. Why are you still here? Claire demanded, her voice rising. If it's over, why haven't you moved on? Emma laughed, a bitter edge to her tone. Oh, honey, I moved on a long time ago, but watching him squirm, that's a show I'll never get tired of. The weight of the moment pressed down on Claire, her mind racing as she tried to make sense of what was real and what wasn't. She turned to Luke, her voice trembling. Is she right? Have you done this before? Luke's jaw tightened, his silence stretching uncomfortably long. Finally, he sighed, his shoulders sagging. It's not like that, he said quietly. I've made mistakes, yes, but with you, it's different. I swear. Different how? Claire asked, her tone sharp. Because I care about you, he said, stepping closer. Because I don't want to lose you. From the bedroom, Claire could hear their voices, low at first, but quickly escalating. What are you doing here, Emma? Luke demanded, his tone clipped. I forgot my keys, she snapped, and don't act like you're innocent in all this. You're the one playing games. Emma, it's over, Luke said firmly. You need to stop showing up uninvited. Claire crept closer to the door, her curiosity outweighing her better judgment. But before she could make sense of their words, the door to the bedroom swung open, and Emma strode in. Her gaze locked onto Claire, a mixture of fury and amusement flashing across her face. Well, well, she said, her lips curving into a sly smile. Looks like you didn't waste any time. Claire scrambled to her feet, clutching the sheet around her. This isn't what it looks like, she stammered, even though she knew how hollow the words sounded. Emma crossed her arms, her gaze shifting to Luke, who had followed her into the room. Oh, I think it's exactly what it looks like, she said coolly. And honestly, I'm not surprised. Emma, Luke began, but she cut him off with a wave of her hand. Save it, she said, her tone dismissive. Then, to Claire's shock, her expression softened, a spark of mischief lighting her eyes. You know, she said slowly, her gaze flicking between them, I could be mad about this. But maybe there's a better way to settle things. Claire's brow furrowed, her heart racing as she tried to interpret Emma's words. What are you talking about? She asked cautiously. Emma stepped closer, her voice dropping to a sultry whisper. Why fight over him, she said, her lips curving into a provocative smile, when we could both enjoy him? Claire's breath hitched as the air in the room grew thick with an entirely new kind of tension. She glanced at Luke, whose eyes widened in surprise but quickly darkened with intrigue. Emma, don't, Luke started, but she silenced him with a finger pressed to his lips. Shh, she said, her voice teasing. Unless you're saying you can't handle it. Claire's mind raced, torn between disbelief and the undeniable pull of the moment. Emma turned to her, her expression softening. What do you say? She asked, her voice low and inviting. Think of it as leveling the playing field. Claire hesitated, her pulse pounding in her ears. But as Emma stepped closer, her hand brushing hers, and Luke's gaze burned into her, she realized she wasn't just a bystander in this game. She had a choice. And when she let the sheet slip from her fingers, she made it. What followed was a whirlwind of passion and desire, a collision of emotions that neither Claire nor Luke could have anticipated. The boundaries between them dissolved, replaced by an intoxicating mix of curiosity and exploration. Emma's boldness, Luke's intensity, and Claire's vulnerability created a night unlike any other one, filled with reckless abandon and an understanding that nothing would ever be the same. As the first light of dawn filtered through the curtains, Claire lay between them, her thoughts swirling. She knew the path ahead would be complicated, messy even. But as Luke's hand found hers and Emma's soft laughter filled the room, she couldn't deny the thrill of stepping into the unknown. Some endings, she realized, weren't really endings at all.